Welcome back. It is still Atlantic Television Network, Press Roundtable. And I have here in the studio a very young man and indeed an on-air personality, a broadcast journalist par excellence, talking about Chris Hope. Chris Hope, you're welcome.
Yes, thank you so much, sir.
Chris Hope is of Wish 99.5 FM, and he does a lot of broadcast journalism job there. You're welcome once again. Now let's look at some of the details. Gabonese Army sacks President Bongo. Army officers under the aegis of the Committee for the Transition and Restoration of Institution on Wednesday morning have announced on national television that they have taken over power for President Ali Bongo of Gabon. The soldiers, highlighted serious institutional, political, economic, and social crisis as factors responsible for the coup they tagged necessary for the progress of Central African country. In a nationwide address rendered in French, but translated to English by AFP, the junta said, "Our beautiful country, Gabon, has always been a haven of peace. We are therefore forced to admit that the organization of the general elections of August 26, 2023 did not meet the conditions for a transparent, credible, and inclusive ballot. So much hope for by the people of Gabon. To this end, the general elections of 26 August 2023 and the truncated results are cancelled. The borders are closed until further notice." Sounding very tough.
Sounding really tough.
Now, we're talking about coup in West Africa. Burkina Faso, Mali,
Niger.
Recently Niger Republic. And suddenly, the ball seems to have been passed to, as it were, a baton seems to have been passed to the Central African country of Gabon.
I think there is really a challenge with the democracy in the African countries, because I'm really wondering why it's not working. I mean, when we had the challenge in Niger, we were really bothered.
Yeah.
We were really bothered, and now coming to Central Africa, it's really challenging. I mean, I think, are we going back to the time when the military had overpowered the states? Because it seems that's the direction we're going to right now.
No, I think that it appears that the political class in Africa are losing grip, because it's failure of governance, failure of leadership. And it does appear as if, for example, what's happening in Gabon, there was just an election that did not meet the yearnings and expectations of the people.
Yeah.
And because of that, the military struck. But we have always complained about military giving reasons why they should come into power.
Yeah.
If an election was mad, was flawed, was not conducted within the tenets of democratic principles, there are democratic processes that can be used to redress.
To redress the challenge?
Yes, you have the courts. And after the courts, you have the people who will sack the government through the ballot.
But you know, sometimes people often believe that the court, I mean the justice, they're no longer as pure as they've always been. You know, there's a sort of discrepancy, or let me say, sort of a challenge.
Mutual suspicion.
Mutual suspicion. They're no longer as transparent as you could imagine. I mean, it's possible. There are some judges out there who would not, certainly want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
As expected. So I'm sure that's why most of these countries are now heading towards the military intervention, because I'm not really in support of the military like that, but I think somehow it seems to be the remedy right now. Don't you think so?
No, I don't want you to think it's a remedy. I'm very democratic, and as a journalist,
we should be democratic too,
democratic in all sense of the word. The point is that, one, we should admit the fact that the political class has failed. Nobody's doubting that.
True.
Now, the military has also failed us in the past. We have had military leaders in office, like in Congo, and some other parts of Idi Amin in Uganda, some military leaders that came to power and stayed and perpetrated dictatorship and bad governance. So bad governance is not peculiar to civilians.
Okay.
That's what I keep on telling my colleagues, including you, for example. It is not, the military does not have a monopoly of transparency when it comes to governance. The military doesn't have that.
You feel that the military
so I'm coming. So because the military doesn't have that monopoly of transparency, the military is not a master. They are not the deus ex machina we're expecting to come and solve the problem men could not solve. They don't have the master stroke to change the governance structure for good. They don't. And when the military come to power, rule of law totally goes to sleep. You're complaining about abuse of court orders in a democratic setup, for example, in Nigeria. You are complaining about some aspects of rule of law not being maintained. You complain about corruption. These are what they talk about. You're talking about low life expectancy, poverty, and all that. The military cannot give you all these things that are lacking. What the military is just there to, they have their constitutional role. They should be there to protect the territorial integrity of African nations. We're talking about bad governance. America, where we got our kind of government, for example. Trump right now is undergoing trial. But you know what the Americans did? They voted him out. They couldn't bring him back to government.
That's very true.
And he would have even been impeached if he was not voted out. In fact, if Trump, if there was need for a tenure extension, Trump would have impeached. So you have our democratic institutions should be strengthened because that's the only hope for development in Africa.
You know,
African, sorry, you talk. African government should strengthen their democratic principles, institutions. Democratic institutions should be strengthened. We should have proper legislative houses. We should have a people, because a government is as good as the people. A leader is a reflection of the followers. Bad followership breeds bad leadership. So in every essence, it is not the Uhuru for Gabon. It's not the Uhuru for Mali. It's not the Uhuru for Niger Republic. Yes, the only lesson we want to learn as Nigerians is that they should remember Thunder, like Christopher Kibo said in his poem, Come Thunder. Whatever they are doing, whenever they forget to do the right thing, they should get back to their hindsight and remember that thunder could strike. And we pray it should not strike in Nigeria.
No, it wouldn't strike. Well, I think you're certainly right. Yes, you're certainly right. I also believe that if things are well done and that the government would give their very best to the people, there wouldn't be a need for the intervention of the military. And of course, the military is not certainly they're not as pure as people may think they are as well. I mean, if they think they are the most, the holiest, if I'll use the word, I think there are also lapses on their end as well. So I think they should stick to their own role in society instead of maybe the governance.
But people have asked, how do we achieve that?
How do we achieve that? I think it starts with me, it starts with you, it starts with the political leaders, it starts with them being more transparent, it starts with the different arms of government, the justice, the judiciary, of course, the executive, and of course legislative. They should be able to be transparent enough, you know, as to making people more comfortable in the society, fulfilling their promises, you know.
And for democracy to survive in Africa, we must get it right in the elections. Now, elections are coming now. We have off-cycle elections are coming in Nigeria. You will see some of those things that people don't like. But I think that we should, talking about strengthening our democratic institution, we should start with electoral reforms. There should be a vigorous move by African Union to convoke conferences, democratic conferences, that will, you know, mentor, as it were, African leaders on the need to enthrone proper democratic institutions. Because if that is not done, then we begin to have this kind of ugly. It's a shame. I'm very much ashamed of African leaders, African countries, because this is not happening in Europe, it's not happening in America, and it's happening here in Africa. And it's a shame. It means that we are not learning. Because ordinarily, I don't think that there's any other government that is better than democracy. No matter how bad a democratic government is, there are checks and balances, there are cleansing processes within the system. And at least people enjoy some level of rights.
Some level of rights. Where your speech is actually free, there's freedom of speech and expression. There are a whole lot of advantages for democracy. But just that people who are in the helms of affair are not necessarily making it seem right.
Yes.
And that's why there's this intervention of the military. But however, I believe that we can, get it right if we have everything and make a change in time, I think.
You're right. I think that the bad leaders are demarcating democracy.
They are demarcating.
They're demarcating democracy.
They're demarcating it.
Yes. Now let's look at the next story. CBN farmers loan under threat as flooding looms. Some frontline states with about 3.04 million Nigerian farmers may struggle to repay over 700 billion naira anchor borrowers program loan of the Central Bank of Nigeria due to flooding. The opening of the dam is expected to affect 13 frontline states according to the National Emergency Management Agency. Already, water levels have risen in some states, including Benue and Anambra, while Niger is already experiencing flooding. Findings show that farmers in the states are at risk of flooding, and the development might make it difficult for them to repay their anchor borrowers' loan. Aside from the opening of the dam in Cameroon, NEMA had earlier said that about 56 communities in 19 states across the country might experience heavy rainfall in August. So it's not just about Lago Dam. It's also about the prediction. 15 communities, going to experience that. And the danger there is loss of crops, loss of farmlands, and then the anchor borrowers loan scheme repayment is being jeopardized. It's
jeopardized. I still think that there is something that the federal government can do to actually reduce the effect or to stop this in time. Because I don't see a reason why we wouldn't have a reservoir in Nigeria. Because opening the dam in Cameroon, of course, I know it would actually flood in, and the effect will be gross. The effect will be gross, and just as they said it, it would affect a whole lot of lives. Now, look at one of the disadvantages right now. The fear that it will not let some of these states that will be affected by the flood to actually pay back the loan, the farmers' loan, and which also in turn affects, of course, the people there. I mean, a lot of persons had the intention, of getting the loan, obtaining the loan to better their lives and develop their own their lifestyle, how they live and stuff in the economy over there in those states. And now, talking about the whole flooding issue, it's really going to be a challenge. It's really going to be chaotic in society.
Now, look at this way. Now, the anchor borrowers loan was given to farmers to produce food and redress food insecurity. So it's not just about the loan, it's also about the fact that there's a serious threat to food security in Nigeria. Already flooding has started in Niger State. The flooding has started even in parts of Benue. Because NIMET and even NEMA had predicted rainfall this August. And August is supposed to be August break.
Yeah.
If you look at the double maximum rainfall, where you have rainfall in July, there's a break in August, and then you have a rise, the second peak comes up in late August and September as it is. So we still have the danger of rainfall because we're not yet in September.
Right.
And if that happens, more farmlands will be drowned. We're not talking about even Lago Dam because the recent story is that Cameroon seems to have suspended that. Suspended Lago because it's going to be a double jeopardy. You have serious rainfall this period that will drown many communities and wipe away farmlands.
That's really
then you're talking about an addition of a flooding phenomenon from the release or opening of Lago Dam from Cameroon. Some of these problems would have been mitigated or even resolved long ago. For example, the Lago Dam we talked about would have solved that problem if Nigeria had built another dam, in Adamawa, for example, to take over some of the excess water and utilize hydroelectric power generation and utilize for irrigation and all that for positive use. These farmers wouldn't be crying. they will have enough water to irrigate their farmlands. They will not have water or flooding that will wipe away their crops. I've said it on this program once. I was listening to a farmer in Benue State who was crying over his farmlands that was wiped away last year. His farmland was wiped away. 2 million naira rice farm.
Oh, wow.
He may have gotten that money from the Anchor Borrowers loan scheme. And the essence of this Anchor Borrowers loan scheme, as many as we have in so many central bank loans, is that when you access this loan, you farm and then make profits, and then you begin to pay the loan in, within the terms in which you are given.
You're given.
Yes. So your last take on this. Let's go to this.
Well, basically, I would say that it's something the federal government would have considered. I mean, proactiveness is everything.
Okay, yeah.
Proactiveness is key. They would have considered this before it would have got to this level we are right now, where it seems now that the whole effect is coming back to the people, you see. So, I'm still positive about it. Hopefully, before whatever happens, before even the rain or whatever, it will be, of course, handled by the government.
Natural disaster, my brother, is not something you're hopeful about. Because it's like Katrina, it's like hurricane, as you have in Northern America and all that.
Yeah,
we are talking about some kind of natural disasters. Rain is natural disaster.
Okay.
Now, all that we are hearing is go to higher land, go to higher plane and all that. Nobody's talking about how to save our farmlands. So it's a doomsday that is meant to happen.
Fast approaching.
Yes, because, yes, if you save human beings and property, our farmlands, you know that this is the farming belt in Nigeria.
Yes.
The whole of central, north central, up to Niger. The whole even northeast, northwest. These people do a lot of farming, and some of them go into mechanized farming. So if this flood wipes off their farms, you're going to have some level of danger, because what we are seeing in Africa, in Nigeria, for example, is the fact that most of our food comes from that part of the world.
Okay.
And even here in River State, for example, the Orashi region is endangered by just the rainfall prediction, not the Lago Dam. Lago Dam can be stopped. Cameroon may say, we'll not open it. Let's see what we can do. Let's save Nigeria. But even if that does not happen, even if that happens, they don't release the flood, the water from the dam. We have our own challenges here from the heavy rainfall.
That's right.
And that is something that is definite.
That's what
and the predictions have never come foul.
Oh, really?
So you are talking about, yes, there's a way out. Is there any way? Yes.
But my angle...
Is there any way out from, in terms of saving the farmlands?
When it happens,
it's happening.
There wouldn't be a way out.
Exactly.
I know. Because
so that's
natural, it's a phenomenon.
Natural disaster. So I think that is something that that worsen the economy.
Worsen the economy. But that of the flood can...
And we hope that they can be mitigated.
Mitigated? Okay.
The word is mitigation, because you can't stop natural flood. And then another way is emergency management.
Okay.
These are the issues Nigerians are talking about now, because you're talking a few weeks from now. So two issues are there. It's coming about mitigation, talking about possibly emergency management by NEMA. And Nigerians are poor emergency managers. Very poor.
Yeah, very poor.
Let's take the next story. We'll just take it and then go on a short break.
Okay.
The Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Hassan Abubakar, said that the Nigerian Air Force has adopted measures aimed at mitigating the effects of climate change, which have significantly exacerbated the various security agencies in the country. Air Vice Marshal Abubakar stated this while delivering a lecture via Zoom to participants of the Senior Executive Course 45 of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, and IPSS, Kuru Jos, Tuesday. The lecture titled Industrialization, Energy Security and Climate Change, the Role of the Nigerian Air Force. The CAS noted that though climate change is not directly responsible for conflicts, it has substantially compounded existing causal agents of conflicts. The conflicts, he said, subsequently reduce people's ability to cope, thereby creating further conflicts. For instance, Irregular and extreme weather at Lake Chad is destroying the profitability of traditional fishing and farming, thus reducing the economic prospect of young men in the area, thereby making them more susceptible to recruitment by violent people. Of course, if you know the story of Boko Haram, the chief of air staff is very correct. If you know the story of Boko Haram, it came as a result of, it was further exacerbated or aggravated by jobless people as a result of those who were sent out of their traditional occupation of fishing. Growing up, I used to hear about Mangala fish coming from Lake Chad, where they cut this fish from the lake, cut them into shreds, and then dry them in the sun and ship them in bags down to the south. It used to be a very beautiful delicacy with Obono soup when we were growing up. That was Mangala. Well, it did not replace fresh fish, which we got from this area, but it was very popular among urban dwellers because, one, it was cheap. And so these fishermen today, because of climate change, and what is the effect of climate change? The drying of Lake Chad. And it has been a big case study by the Chad Basin Authority and the Chad Commission, which had to look into the issues of challenges arising from that lake, between Nigeria and neighboring African countries. And a lot of things we have done about Chad. There were even options that water from River Congo could be pumped into the Chad Basin. And we had that. We had a lot of issues, pumping water maybe from the Niger or whatever water body that is in close proximity into the Chad Basin to resuscitate it. But that was not done. So the Chad Basin dried up, and the result was a lot of people were not, were sent out of work. And so when Boko Haram came, Boko Haram simply meant book is nonsense. Book is not good. So they began to recruit these people who were jobless. And that led to the terror situation we have in the Northeast. So the chief of air staff is very correct. Climate change has affected a lot of people. If you look at what is happening in the north too, the Fulani herdsmen could no longer graze their cattle. Even those in the Nigeria Republic could no longer graze their cattle because the climate change has dried up the grass in the Sahel and the shrublands of the northern part of Nigeria. If you know the geographical topography of Nigeria. And so the Fulani herdsmen now had to come down south looking for greener pastures for their cattle. And that has resulted into herder farmers conflict.
Well, that's true.
So that's a very big problem. And so there's a nexus between climate change and insecurity.
Insecurity in the country. Yeah, well, that's very true. Looking at the fact that if such a situation is not been arrested, if they don't try to come into its salvation, it would actually affect a whole lot of youths. Just like he said it right there, that it would affect the youth living in that area, and of course, will make them promiscuous, will make them go into vulnerable act and all that.
To get into crime.
So, but then the question now is, how do we really curb, this climate change?
Climate change cannot be curbed. It can only be mitigated. Because climate change is as a result of the opening in the ozone layer, which has resulted into warming of the Earth or the planet. And warming leads to desertification. Warming leads to dissolution of glacial body, in the water, where water in the glacial zones of the world, the Arctic and all that, the ice begin to melt and begin to increase water bodies and cause flooding and all that. So climate change is causing flooding because water bodies are rising because ice is melting. Climate change is also causing desertification, and so leading to drought. And all these factors lead to what the Air Force officer is talking about. But you can only mitigate climate change. People have talked about stopping pollution, stopping all those pollution of the atmosphere that are leading to the depletion of the ozone layer, thereby increasing the heat and the warmth that comes into the Earth's surface. So once you minimize gas flaring, for example, or forms of pollution, you reduce the effect, and that is just one way to mitigate. That's all.
But I also think, in as much as he is right, I mean, this is something, just as we know it is natural. It happens once in a while. And I still believe that in as much as it somehow takes them away from their occupation, from what gives them food and all that, it's not really the best for them, for people, you know, because of one or two reasons, to really go into promiscuity.
No, we're not saying that. He's correct. He's saying that it makes them vulnerable.
Vulnerable?
Natural disasters make people vulnerable. That's why you have IDP camps. Are you saying that people should not go into IDP camps because when the situation becomes bad? They put them in IDP camp. And when they put them in IDP camp, they become vulnerable to poverty, vulnerable to diseases, vulnerable to all manner of things, and all that. And then it leads to terror.
Terror in that very place?
It leads to criminality. For example, if the herders still had greener pastures in their zone, they won't be coming to Benue State and other parts of Nigeria, even to River State, to look for greener pastures. They will not do that. They will not do that because the only mitigating measure we have to talk about when it comes with agriculture is one, the government must be proactive. Anything that there is to be done, for example, for Lake Chad should be done. Pumping water from the Congo River, pumping water from Niger or Benue or wherever that is in close proximity to the Chad Basin can be done. After Muammar Gaddafi of Libya was able to convert desert into large flooding plains, flooded plains, and they were using it for agriculture. So that is one. And then two, ranching, for example, can solve that problem. And when you ranch, you can plant grass.
You plant grass?
Come here, take grass to the north. Plant grass, water them, groom them, and let the cattle eat and remain there in ranches. So these are the only things you can talk about when you say it is not an excuse.
An excuse.
But you can mitigate it by being proactive and being creative and innovative. I think that's what the Nigerian government lacks. Well, we're going to short break. When we come back, we will take more stories. Don't go away. It is still Atlantic Television Network Press Roundtable. Stay tuned.
Across the ocean, to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, bring.
Every day, our lives are changed by history.
We are one people, all of us.
Leaders, politics.
Nobody's ambition is what's the blood.
I have fought very firmly.
Natural occurrence, war, and the world economy.
I belong to everybody, and I belong to nobody.
ATN covers it all on ATN Politics today.
People into the country illegally. That is amazing.
Honorable
human trafficker.
Honorable they are not picking our calls. They made up their minds.
Welcome back. It is still Atlantic Television Press Roundtable here in Port Harcourt, as we have Chris Hope in the studio, and we'll look at more stories. Chairman of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC Professor Bolaji Owasanoye, has charged members of the Nigerian Bar Association to closely work with law enforcement agencies in curbing money laundering and terrorism financing. He made the appeal yesterday at the yearly General Conference of the Association of Nigerian Lawyers, NBA, in Abuja. Owasanoye, who was part of a panel of discussants on ethics and professional conduct of lawyers, commended NBA President Yakubu Maikayu and the leadership for raising the pertinent issues. The session focused on new NBA rules and guidelines on anti-money laundering and terrorism financing, as well as underlining the role of the legal profession in the fight against the vices. Interesting. Well, the role of lawyers in all this is something that is important. You cannot talk about rule of law without lawyers and the law. You cannot talk about the fight against corruption without the lawyers and the law. And when lawyers compromise their professional ethics, the rule of law goes to sleep, or is murdered, or is raped. When they fail to do the right thing in curbing corruption, the same thing happens. This story is a pointer and indeed an indication to the fact that in most cases in Nigeria, lawyers have not played their role. Lawyers seem to have sacrificed their professional ethics and allowed the nation suffer from the scourge of corruption. Because who are the lawyers to these criminals?
That's the question.
Who are the lawyers to those who do this? They're either in the bench or in the bar.
That's a question.
Those in the bench are those in the judiciary. Those in the bar are those who prosecute, those who serve as defense counsel and all that, those who waste the time of court, those who make all manner of controversial, put themselves in some kind of level of controversial disposition to ensure that a particular proceeding, legal proceeding, is stalled in favor of their clients and against the interests of the general public. So lawyers, lawyers, lawyers. it is good that ICPC boss went to NBA to talk.
It's true. You know, the collaboration with this NBA would actually help to curb the level of money laundering we have in the country. And as you said it as well, I think the compromise has become so alarming. And that is why I'm sure this talk was very important. And I still believe that if the NBA, the lawyers could really be aligned, if they could actually not compromise their stand, then I think the corruption would really reduce drastically, and especially when it comes to money laundering, when it comes to things of this nature, it would actually reduce effectively.
Yes. You see, one thing about the lawyers is that they escalate certain issues and take certain stands and make calls that are not necessary. And some of these calls derail the judicial process and sometimes let criminals out of the hook.
That's right.
That is the problem. And then they need to contribute, to the jurisprudence regarding some of these issues. And if they don't contribute to the jurisprudence in terms of prosecution relating to some of these issues, in terms of judicial proceedings, then there's a problem. Because the legal activism gives rise to enriching judicial jurisprudence itself and could make the fight against some of this criminality simpler and indeed easier. I think that is where the matter is coming.
It's coming.
Now let's look at this other story.
Okay.
And it's coming from Bayelsa. Group tells Silva, leave President Tinubu out of Bayelsa polls. A group, the Pan-Nigerian Democratic Alliance, PANDA, has warned the governorship candidate of the All Progressive Congress in Bayelsa, Chief Timothy Silva, not to drag President Bola Tinubu into the mud over his desperation to win the November 11 governorship election in Bayelsa State. The group, which spoke through its convener, Chief Olaitan Adewale in Abuja, said as a Democrat who has paid his dues, the president should not fall for the antics of anybody or group who wants to circumvent the process to attain political office against the will and choice of the majority. We are particularly surprised at the desperation of some people whose antics have already led to violence, death, and displacement in some parts of the state, particularly in Basambri, Nembe. This has been the pattern in Nembe and Brass in every election cycles, particularly those that Silva is involved. Well, this is an attack on Silva. This is some kind of admonition not to drag Tinubu into what's happening. Already, the off-cycle election in Bayelsa has been heated up. And that's one of the problems we're talking about in Africa. The abuse of democratic institutions, the abuse of democratic processes like elections, has led to some of these apprehensions and recriminations that we have from the military, for example, and from the people more. Because when the people cry, the military hears. Why can't we conduct an election in a transparent manner? What is really wrong with our people? The case of Bayelsa, you have electoral violence flashpoint in Nembe area, in the Bayelsa East, and it's Basambri, and that appears to be Silva's zone. The place appears to be heated up. Yesterday, we read that the governor of Bayelsa State, Doyodiri, went to Basambri and Bulumabiri there to talk to the people and told them that in the west of Jonathan, that his ambition to become governor again of Bayelsa State is not worth the spilling of the blood of poor Bayelsans.
That's really true. I still believe that people can win without involving others into their matters. I mean, if people see you to be okay and they want your government, they certainly will bring you in. And just like they rightly told him to leave Tinubu out of his need to be governor, I mean, he should really take heed to that. I mean, it would help him the most. it would help the most, because when people see you're good, when people see what you've done over the time, over the years, they wouldn't even need much conviction for them to vote for you. So I think it's really a good thing as they are channeling that towards him, you know, to be more dependent on his own ambitions than to drag the president into his affairs.
Yes, it goes beyond dragging the president into the affairs.
Okay.
Because what's happening in Bayelsa is local. So pushing it to Abuja doesn't make sense. And they need to know the need not to spill blood. Timmy Priscilla has been there before. Doye Birdiri has been there before as governor. He wants a re-election. I think the two gladiators should not sit as a do or die thing. Because when two elephants fight, the grass suffers.
That's true.
Let's take the last story.
Okay.
PDP seeks probe of alleged bribery of tribunal judges. The Democratic Party's Zamfara State chapter has recently expressed concern over an allegation of bribery against judges of Zamfara Election Petition Tribunal sitting in Sokoto State. The party is reacting to the widely circulated leaked audio where a staunch supporter of All Progressive Congress and online media owner has said that he was contracted by a former governor of the state to compromise the judgment in favor of APC. The press briefing in Gusau, Zamfara State capital. The acting PDP chairman in Zamfara State, Mukhtar Lugar, said in a leaked audio that the APC chieftain bragged about the former governor, now senator, guaranteeing that he would secure victory for the APC in the governorship race. Adding that the APC chieftain further alleged that the former governor gave 100 million naira to 17 members of the State House Assembly to commence impeachment proceedings against the state Governor Daud Lawal. The acting PD chairman is calling on the National Judicial Council to order a full investigation into the allegation of foul play in the part of the judges of the tribunal as suspected by the APC chieftain in the audio tape. Well, all these things, this should be the last story, really. Just put your voice to this on the issue of compromising judicial decency, as it were, in favor of certain people in the electoral process. That's the problem we have. That's why Africa is burning. That's why the military class, junta, are raising their heads everywhere in West Africa and now Central Africa. So your last take, so let us know.
Yes, basically, I think if the tribunal judges will be more fair and transparent, then I think the country will be a better place to be.
Thank you very much. Well, that has been Chris Hope. Well, we'll pray that our judges become transparent. What you can take on today's program, ATM Press Roundtable here in the Garden City of Port Harcourt on Atlantic Television Network. Don't forget, Press Roundtable comes every 7:30, 7 to 8 o'clock, every day, Monday to Friday. Well, don't forget to watch us live on our ATN socials, talking about various social media platforms. They are there, from Twitter to TikTok and what have you. Thanks for tuning in. It has been Chris Hope with me here in the studio. And don't forget, the global news comes up at 9 p.m. And remember, peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Make peace your watchword. My name is Bon Wookie. Stay tuned. Don't get away.